There is no better place in the world than the Jaipur Literature Festival.
The crowd here is so engaged, so warm, so kind. And then I was speaking with my mother, who is an icon in the world of literature and history and authorship.
I go to a lot of festivals, and there is no comparison to the standard, intellectual standard of Jaipur, and it's so entertaining.
The audience is incredibly engaged. It's a wonderful place. If you love books, this is the place to be.
It's a crowd of every type in the society. So you can see a mini India here. You can see the fashion also. When I come to this place, I get a boost and I get into those stories and reading. And I want him also to catch that fever, you know.
That in one day you can be talking about the alignment of the planets after so many years, talking about the rise of regional cinema in India, talking about the sport and the new ecosystem in the country or in the world. I mean, in one day you can actually learn so many things about worlds you didn't know existed.
Everything that we find here is very in sync with the JLF spirit, right? There's beautiful things, there's organic things. I think what we both loved was there's so many young people doing such innovative products.
And the music, oh my goodness, was that amazing.
An artist like El Subramaniam in a backdrop like the fort, which is so beautifully lit up, it is unbelievable and unreal.
सिर्फ एक ही शब्द इस शाम को जो है अपने आप में एक डिफाइन कर सकती है और वो है बेहद खूबसूरत.
Oh, no.
ये माल का महीना है.
Come with us on a teamwork arts voyage. Explore India's historic cities, diverse cultures through our evocative festivals. 3 historic cities. Varanasi, Jaipur, Amritsar. Heal with the flow of the Ganges. Mahindra Kabira Festival, 19th to the 21st of December 2025. Unlock the secrets of the historic forts and palaces in Jaipur. The Jaipur Heritage Festival, 5th to the 7th of December 2025. And the Jaipur Literature Festival, 15th to the 19th of January 2026. Imbibe the philosophy and spirituality of the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Sleep well, the sacred Amritsar, 20th to the 22nd of February 2026. Experience our festivals of ideas, literature, music, historic sites, flavors, craft traditions, and more. your delegate package now. Become a friend of the festival. Jaipur Heritage Festival, 5th to the 7th of December 2025. Mahindra Kabira Festival, 19th to the 21st of December 2025. The Jaipur Literature Festival, 15th to the 19th of January 2026. Sleepwear the Sacred Amritsar, 20th to the 22nd of February 2026. Write to us at delegates@teamworkouts.com.
It's New York, the mobile app for the State Bank of India, providing all the services you need right to your mobile device. For personal banking needs to remittances, download YONO US New York today. State Bank of India, New York, grow with us.
Cannot tell you how excited I am to be here. This is the greatest literary festival there is.
The chance that we get to celebrate the arts, to be able to meet people who have written such wonderful books.
The kinds of friendships that are made here, conversations, collaborations.
This is such a great opportunity for the great minds of our time to come together.
Multiple different sessions. One of them was the explaining to kids about Israel and Palestine, and another one was world building for sci-fi and fantasy.
We always have sessions that bring together these very different lenses of looking at the world and showing to young people, especially young people, that, in a way, all kinds of knowledge are actually unified at the end of the day.
The opportunity to listen to the music, to listen to the authors. Every time I come, there's always something I carry back with me.
It is a joy of listening to so many amazing conversations, to hear the considered views that are being articulated, not just by writers from India, but those from the United States and from elsewhere, to really meet some of the best and brightest. Thank you, JLF, for bringing us all together.
Motivated. Kabir speaks of a deep meditative experience.
Nurjahan was also an amazing poet, apart from a fine architect, a trend-setting architect.
Every film that I've ever made, every character is me, and if I cannot find myself in the characters, I really don't know how to make a film.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Fiction. My name is Melanie McNair. I'm the Senior Director of Public Programming here. How many of you are here for the first time today? Oh my goodness, you are all so welcome. The Center for Fiction is a 200-year-old cultural nonprofit, and our mission is to encourage people to read and value fiction and to support and celebrate its creation and enjoyment. We do this through public events and partnerships like this one, reading groups, writing workshops, all celebrating the joy of story. We also support early career writers with our first novel prize and our emerging writing fellowship. If you like what you see in your local, please become a member and come back often. For example, on September 30th, we are thrilled to welcome Kiran Desai here to launch her new novel, The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny. And when I tell you that this is a perfect book, I mean that I found myself underlining passages on nearly every single page and saying to myself, there really is no better way to say this. It's a beautiful book. So please come back and celebrate her achievement with us. Welcome to all of you who are joining us on the live stream as well. After the talk, we will have a Q&A, and we'll bring a microphone to you if you have a question, so just raise your hand. And if you have a question and you're on the live stream, you can put that into the chat at any time. And we will do signing and personalization in the back of the room after the event, so stick around after the talk is over. In a time when some are moving toward isolationism, we at the Center for Fiction are continuing to joyfully open our doors for international literature, and it is my absolute pleasure to be part of the Jaipur Literature Festival in New York again this year, and my honor to work with their whole team, and my privilege to introduce their Captain Suraj to bring our panel up.
Thank you, Melanie. It was about 5 years ago during the pandemic when we first received an email from Melanie and her colleagues that while you have an establishment of JLF in the United States and New York, why don't we work together? Why don't we collaborate together? So in 2022, in April, when we visited after the pandemic for the first time and we came to this paradise of books, we fell in love immediately. We fell in love with the bookstore, we fell in love with the venue, we fell in love with Melanie and her colleagues, and we immediately knew that we will do this collaboration. So in 2022, in September, the first time we collaborated with Center for Fiction, and since then, there's been no looking back, we've been only going stronger. And we hope Melanie and all her colleagues over here that we just make this collaboration and partnership stronger year on a year. So thank you very much, Melanie and her colleagues at Center for Fiction for being our valuable partners and supporting JLF and being really a huge support for everything that we do. Thank you very much. The festival, this is the first session of the festival of JLF New York 2025. We have a whole day tomorrow at Asia Society. We start at 3 p.m. and go on till about 8 p.m. with various sessions. And then day after at the National Arts Club, we'll start at 11 a.m. with a couple of sessions. So please do come for every session, every event of JLF. If you haven't registered yourself, you can register yourself outside with our colleagues, and please try to come for every event. Thank you very much. Before I introduce the session today, I would just like to thank our valuable partners and supporters without whom this festival wasn't possible. Our venue partners, the Center for Fiction, of course, Asia Society, the National Arts Club, our supporters, State Bank of India, New York, Mr. Rajasekhar Reddy is here. Thank you very much for all your support and all the, yes, absolutely. Let's give them a big round of applause. If we do not, the corporates and the banks do not support arts and literature, we won't be able to do it. Thank you very much, Mr. Reddy. VFS Global, MIT, Devjani Dev and Harinder Silva, our region partner, yes please, our region partner, Junta de Castilla y Leon, knowledge partner, KIT, domestic airline partners, Spirit Airlines, catering partners, Ishq Restaurant and Madam G, and our executive festival committee members, Devjani Dev and Pankhuri. And thank you very much for being here. Let me introduce our session for today. The Gujaratis, a portrait of a community, Salil Tripathi and Suketu Mehta in conversation. In Gujaratis, a portrait of a community, acclaimed writer Salil Tripathi traces the journey of a community whose enterprising spirit has carried them across the world. The Gujaratis, through their remarkable resilience and pragmatic commercial spirit, have left their footprint in almost every continent. Traversing through histories of migration, faith, commerce, and politics, Tripathi, with celebrated writer Suketu Mehta, examines the paradoxes of belonging and ambition. Introducing the speakers, Salil Tripathi has been an award-winning correspondent in Southeast Asia. His latest book, The Gujaratis, A Portrait of a Community, is longlisted for the Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay NIF Prize for Nonfiction. His previous works include Offense, The Hindu Case, and The Colonel Who Would Not Repent. Tripathi is the co-editor of For In Your Tongue, I Cannot Fit, a collection of writings from and about prison with artist Shilpa Gupta. He serves on board of PEN International. Suketu Mehta is the New York-based author of Maximum City, Bombay Lost and Found, which won the Kiriyama Prize and the Hutch Crossword Award, and was a finalist for the 2005 Pulitzer Prize, the BBC 4 Samuel Johnson Prize, and the Guardian First Book Award. He has won the Whiting Writers Award, the O. Henry Prize, and the New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowship for his fiction. He's an associate professor of journalism at New York University. Mehta has written original screenplays for films, including New York, I Love You. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our speakers on stage, Salil Tripathi and Suketu Mehta.
These two here. Yeah.
All right, thank you all for coming. This is just such a thrill for me. I'll tell you a story about how I first met Salil. It was 1984, and I was on a bus in rural Gujarat going to this camel fair called Tarnetarno Melo. And my friend Mehul Kothari, a diamond merchant, said to me, "Oh, that's Salil Tripathi. He's a Gujarati writer." And I'd never heard those two words together. And we didn't really speak much then, but over the years, we became great friends, and now we both live in New York. And so when he told me he was working on this project, I was just so absolutely thrilled, because Salil is the perfect person to do this. And when I finally read the book, I mean, it's a book that it's about more than my community, it's about me. It's, Salil grew up close to me in Bombay. He went to a school called New Era, where I sent my son to. In fact, his mom was the guidance counselor in my school that I went to, after I'd left. And it's about diamond merchants, it's about Bombay, it's about Gujarat, it's about the Gujarati diaspora abroad. So I feel more seen and recognized in this book than just about any other book I can think of. So thank you for writing.
Thank you.
Maybe we can just begin with giving people a taste of, just your wonderful fluid prose and the way in which you take in huge amounts of information and present it in a way which is really sort of gripping even to people who aren't Gujaratis. So who are Gujaratis? How many of us are there, and why should anyone read a book about Gujarati?
Great question. People have asked me often, but the best answer was given by somebody who was reviewing it for the Asian Review of Books, who I don't know, but he said that there are 60 to 70 million Gujaratis in the world, and there is one book about them now, and there are 30 to 40 books a year published about the French, who amount to 60 million or 70 million in the world. So the point being that, it's in terms of sheer numbers, Gujaratis do matter, and we can talk about it later, politically, culturally, literature-wise, financially, in every which way. Gujaratis do matter. They are largely found in Western India, but they are everywhere. Kash Patel is a Gujarati. Ismail Merchant was a Gujarati. Zubin Mehta is a Gujarati. I can go on and on. Zohran Mamdani is half Gujarati. So there you go. So, we're taking control of New York slowly, as you can see that. Yes. So there is that. But, motels in US, I think something like 40 to 50% of motels are run by Patels, who are Gujaratis. Kal Penn, the actor, he's Gujarati. There you go. If you go to pharmacies in London, most of them are run by Gujaratis. Diamond merchants in Antwerp, most of them are Jain Gujaratis. So the tentacles are everywhere, and we have the alpha and omega about peace and conflict. I mean, we have Mohandas Gandhi on one side and Narendra Modi on the other side. So, yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to read?
Yeah, I think I'll read this section called Aao Mari Saathi. And because I mentioned Suketu Mehta and Ismail Merchant, I want to clarify that Gujaratis are not only Jains and Hindus. They are Muslims, they are Christians, they are Jewish Gujaratis. The best zoo in Ahmedabad, the only zoo in Ahmedabad, but the best in Gujarat, was founded by Reuben David, who was Jewish Gujarati.
Esther David, wonderful.
Esther David is his daughter. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I take an expansionist definition of who a Gujarati is. The one who speaks the language, possibly counts in it, dreams in it, and thinks in it. The majority, the one who has moved to the land where Gujarati is spoken by the majority, the ones who may speak other languages but have made Gujarat their home and preserve their minority identities, and the ones who may live anywhere else in the world but are of Gujarati heritage. Gujarati is a language, not a religion, nor a caste. So the Gujaratis you will meet in these pages belong to all strata of society and include Hindus, Muslims, Parsis, Jains, Buddhists, Dalits, Christians, and others who identify with other ethnicities and may be of no faith. So this is the opening part, which kind of gives a flavor of what the book has, and it's page and a half, but I won't go very fast, but I think it's worth going through that. Aao mari sathe. Aao, beso, shu lesho, thandu, garam, nasto, pani. Come with me, welcome, do sit down. What will you have? Something hot or cold? Tea, snacks, water? So you want to know about us, the Gujaratis. You want to know who we are, what has made us the way we are, and you wonder why we act the way we do. You know quite a bit about us already, and you probably have strong opinions about us, that we are vegetarian and we are supposed to be clever at making money. We are practical and pragmatic. We murder the finest cuisines in the world by adding sugar and Amul cheese to everything, transforming Punjabi, Chinese, and Italian food into concoctions that Punjabis, Chinese, or Italians would disown. When we travel, we expect to eat dhokla and gathia in Amritsar, Shanghai, or Rome. We generously share our snacks, which we pronounce as snakes. And we have food taboos that exasperate our hosts. No onion or garlic on Fridays. Puri is only made of amaranth flour during the monsoon month of Shravan. Many of us piously say we are vegetarian, and then late evening, when our family is glued to Arnab Goswami on television, we tiptoe out and visit the hawker's cart down the alley to eat omelets. The more adventurous among us even develop a taste for kebabs. And we bury its taste by chewing pan before returning home, so that nobody can suspect our postprandial indiscretions. And we break into Garba at the slightest pretext. Garba has near religious significance. What goes around comes round doesn't always mean karma. For us, it means Garba. You may not know our poets and writers because you think that the only books we care about is the ledger. We are obsessed with success, which we feel can be measured objectively only through money. Paiso bole che, we know that money talks. Even at funerals, you might see some men discussing stock market prices while looking suitably gloomy, randomly folding their hands and doing namaste when someone passes by. We can walk into a restaurant and brazenly ask for 1 cup of tea with 3 saucers, which the friends accompanying us will share. We buy a newspaper for 4 rupees and 8 of us pass around to read it. Because making paisa vasool, extracting value from money, is our birthright. Some of us are known to haggle with a hapless call center worker for an hour for the phone to get 20 rupees refunded. You smirk at our meticulous planning, but entrust the logistics of organizing complex events to us. You find it hilarious that we wave the tricolor vigorously but rarely join the army. Actually, some of us do. If you call us cowards, we point at the photo of the man whose photo is on all currency notes in India, except the old 1 rupee note, Mohandas Gandhi, and claim we are non-violent. And as with all such unjustified insults, we will see that there's more than enough valor among Gujaratis. As to non-violence, that's another story altogether. We periodically erupt into gruesome violence, massacring hundreds of our own. In India alone, there are 55 million people who consider Gujarati to be their mother tongue, approximately 4.58% of the population. And possibly there are 6 million more of us abroad on every continent, if not in every country. 1 out of every 3 Indians abroad is a Gujarati. In a video that has gone viral on the internet among Gujaratis, the popular raconteur, Sairam Dave, recounts dozens of names of prominent Gujaratis. But there are exceptions within us. Not all of us are vegetarians. One of the most comprehensive surveys of Gujaratis ever undertaken shows increased meat eating among Gujaratis. Only 76 of the 300 Gujarati communities surveyed by the Anthropological Survey of India said they ate only vegetarian food. And some 130 communities, or nearly half, said they ate meat occasionally. Not all of us are good at making money either. And as the long list of corporate scandals shows, not all Gujarati businesses are necessarily ethical. Nor are all of us Gujarati ascetics. Many of us love our gold and diamonds. Go to Zaveri Bazaar at Opera House in Bombay, or where the Gujarati owners and Gujarati staff will cater to Gujarati patrons. We have run motels in America, fought apartheid in South Africa, been expelled from Uganda, formed trade unions in London, sold opium to China, and financed Subhash Chandra Bose's Indian National Army in Southeast Asia. We dominate the list of India's wealthiest, and yet our poorest break ships and clean drains. Hospitable yet calculating, mercantile and pragmatic, pious and yet tolerating violence, worldly wise while claiming to be spiritual, cheerful and transactional. We see nothing wrong with our contradictions. In the 1970s and 80s, Adi Marzban, the famous Parsi theatre director, who also edited the family newspaper Jam-e-Jamshed, hosted an extremely popular TV show in Gujarati in Bombay. It had gags, magic tricks, musical performances, skits, jokes and homilies that never failed to entertain. Avo Mari Sathe, it was called. Come with me. And come with me, I too say, as I explore the complexities of my people, how we earn, how we politic, how we create, how we pray, how we play, how we eat, and how we kill.
I grew up on Avo Mari Sathe, of course.
It was wonderful, that show, yeah.
Okay, so if you ask an average Indian about Gujarati, they know how to make money.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're very literary. We worship books, but it happens to be a ledger.
Yeah, red cover, yeah.
That you talk about. My family, you know, every Diwali, we bring out our accounting books and we do puja to them.
Chopada Pujan, yeah.
Chopada Pujan.
Yeah.
So what explains it? And in your book, you know, go into detail about this, the mercantile origins of much, not all of Gujarat. And how is it tied to this, basically a success story of the Gujarati diaspora abroad? I believe the largest single Indian community in the US is Gujarati.
Very likely, yeah.
And in the UK as well. So, you know, my
UK, there will be competition with Punjabis and Bengalis because of Bangladesh. And
right.
I think even in the US, the figures might get skewed if you speak about simply the language and not nationality.
Right. So my mother's family went to Nairobi and then on to England and the US and so forth. So what's the connection between that mercantile success and the willingness to, you know, go where your business takes you?
Yes, so there's a push and the pull factor because Gujarat has had a series, it has a very large coastline. It has India's largest coastline. So the desire to leave is always there and explore what's beyond. And therefore Aden, Sumatra on the other side, and Mombasa and Yemen, I mean, all those places you have a lot of Gujarati, Mozambique being another place like that. So people have always gone out to trade and prosper. And what was driving them out was a drought and occasionally famine because the climate is harsh in Kutch and Saurashtra. And therefore the desire to go, and also at the crossroads. If you look at the map of Gujarat, I mean, it's literally, it's a trading hub on one side, but also it links with the old Silk Road and you know, all of that. So a lot of trade used to pass through Rajasthan and Gujarat all in the earlier time. So being the middle person, middleman, middle woman, whatever you, but being the intermediary has become very important for Gujaratis. And also great deal of pragmatism and practicality. So there are instances after instances that I've found that there are devout Jain and Hindus and even probably Swaminarayan followers who wouldn't ever eat even onion, garlic, and meat. But the corner grocery store that they might run in London will have beef patties for sale, and they wouldn't have a problem with that. They will insist that, you know, their daughters wear full trousers and or chudidar kurta, but they will have no problem selling condoms to teenagers who come looking for them. So that kind of pragmatism of making money regardless and with anybody, and it's not unique to Gujaratis, as in Hindus and Jains. You see it among Memans, Khojas, and Bohras, the three main Gujarati Muslim and Chelia Muslims, about whom I learned when I was writing about this. If you go from Vapi and Daman all the way to Ahmedabad north, most of the restaurants which have Hindu sounding like Bhagyashri and Durgesh and all of them would be actually run by Chelia Muslim, pure vegetarian restaurants, but the entire thing is run by the Shia community. So I think there's a lot of pragmatic outlook, willingness to do business and be useful and be an intermediary. And I remember meeting someone in Muscat who said that, you know, I said, aren't you bothered that, you know, there are all these restrictions? Aapne to be paisa kamavo chhe, is what he said. We are here to earn 2 paisa, 2 cents. And, you know, so, and he had a huge house in the Corniche, looking at, and he knew the Sultan very well, Sultan Qaboos at that time in Muscat, but he kept such a low profile you wouldn't be able to tell. I mean, you've written about it in, you know, Maximum City in your book when you talk about the Jain families and you describe them: white shirt, black trousers, vegetarian food, potato wafers, and Coca-Cola. And, you know, women sitting in one side and men talking to one another. You couldn't tell that these guys are all multimillionaires, if not billionaires.
You also write about the Ambanis and the Adanis, now maybe the 2 most successful business families in the country. And, you know, Dhirubhai Ambani and the legend of Dhirubhai in growing up in basically a chawl in Bombay, going abroad. And now his grandson has this incredibly lavish wedding with 100 different functions. If a lot of your book explores these contradictions of this asceticism on one side and incredible opulence. But it seems to me that until recently that sort of opulence was considered gauche to spend too much on a wedding, for example.
Right.
You know, that was something that Punjabis would do.
Yes.
So what changed?
I think what changed was the whole changing ethos of India itself. I mean, you know, in a way, 1990s and economic reforms, where, you know, this is what Deng Xiaoping said about China, but to get rich was glorious suddenly. You know, and it was nice to not live in an apartment at Cup Parade versus all these 100-story towers that are now coming up all over Bombay and elsewhere in India. It was fine owning malls and, you know, and being, but yeah, I have a Lalikwas and I've got a Porsche or a Lamborghini, and it became fine and it became acceptable to say. And the very fact that Gandhian austerity was being forgotten, and the inequality was something that it happens, and, you know, we are all earning money and we have the right to spend it, and we have earned the right to do that. I think that and it's across India you find that, you know, this kind of culture of malls that are coming up in every town and the lavishness of the airports and so on. And Gujarati said, why not us too? And they've started using it and demonstrating it.
So something else that's also changed is that now there are increasing numbers of Gujarati writers. And when we were writing, we were basically thought we might be the only 2 who wrote in English anyway. And now there's just lots all over.
Avni Doshi, Ruchi Joshi, I mean, Kiran Desai is half Gujarati, so there you go.
But to me, the greatest Gujarati writer was Narsih Mehta,
yes,
who we're both descended from because we're both Nagars. So could you talk a bit about Nagars and Narsih Mehta, and particularly his poem, which I find the most moving poem? It's actually a hymn. It's called Vaishnav Janato Tene Kahiye, which is Gandhiji's favorite bhajan. And you have a section about Vaishnav Janato.
Yes, I do. In fact, it's an amazing poem because it's Vaishnav is, of course, a caste, and so you can see it as a caste-based song. But when you look at its meaning and look at Narsih Mehta's own life, you realize that, you know, it goes way beyond everything. It just talks about the ideal virtues of a person and man. But I mean, equally, this was written in the 15th and 16th century. So we are talking about a particular age and time. And Narsih Mehta was a very interesting character because he came from the uppermost caste among Gujaratis. But he took a great affection for what we now refer to as Dalits, and he coined the word Harijan, which people are attributing it to Gandhi, but the word Harijan comes from Narsingh Mehta. And Narsingh Mehta would go to have his morning ablution at a lake in Junagadh. And he saw all these Dalits who were praying and, were kept away from that. So he started going to their locality and started singing with them. And the Nagar community ostracized him, saying that, you can't because you're with them. He said, I don't care. And he was embraced by the Dalits too. And Gandhi really liked his reaching out and, breaking through the caste barrier. And therefore he made it. So the song goes like this: Vaishnav janto tene re kahiye je peed parai jane re. Par dukhe upkar kare toy man abhiman naane re. And I mean, it's an 8-line verse and I can go over the whole thing. But if you have seen Gandhi, the film, towards the end, Lakshmi Shankar sings this. So if you stay for the credit titles, you will hear this song. And it basically means that the ideal person is one who knows what the good that he has to do to others, par dukhe upkar kare, who will relieve the pain of others, but at the same time feel no pride. And it's genuinely a beautiful tune, and it's so well known that when Gandhi's 150th anniversary, which was in 2019, schools in around 100 countries sang bits of that hymn all over, and it was run into a very beautiful video by. There has been a fine film by Mayank Chaya actually about who I think is based in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, an Indian-American writer who has made a fine film about it, and it's. And it really has, it's according to Sitanshu Yashachandra, this great Gujarati poet, he calls it the first hint of modernity, because he actually talks about darkness being removed and there is only one God. I mean, he talks about the unity and all. I mean, I'm not a believer myself, so I'm interpreting it when I tell you these stories. But basically, there's a lot of richness in his poetry, and I've written about that in the book too.
And the poem is about this universal acceptance, the perfect person, the perfect Vaishnava, the perfect Vishnu worshipper, right? Someone who doesn't recognize difference between you and me. So when he went and ate at Dalit houses, he was ostracized by his community, which happens to be ours, Nagars. And then there was this incredible statement of belonging, which seems to be so incredibly relevant today in this country as well, this very polarized country. One of my favorite sections of your book is where you talk about food. This book will make you hungry. Gujaratis like to eat, and usually with a lot of sugar in it. But with our business acumen, we also see opportunities that may not have been conceived in the Michelin Guide. So one of my favorite sections of Salil's book is a section about Jasubain's pizza. And so I'll ask you to read that.
Yeah, okay. We love appropriating other people's cuisines. We transform their dishes into unrecognizable concoctions. Think of Jain pizza. This is a pizza without onion and garlic. We have a bindas. Bindas is a Bombay word for someone who doesn't care. We have a bindas attitude towards usurping iconic brands too. For a Gujarati, KFC is not Kentucky Fried Chicken, but Khaman Fafda Chevdo. Khaman being a cousin of Dokla, but made of gram and chickpea flour. Fafda, the bigger version of Gathia, and Chevdo being less sweet and more spicy version of Busu. Chora fari could also be there, which is a thin, crispy, savory snack. We assume many foods as ours, even if their presence in Gujarat is because of external influences. Several dry fruits like badam, pista, and jardalu have Persian origin. We call potatoes batata. The word and the potato itself is of Portuguese origin. We rename foods in ways that would horrify foreigners. We call croissants Videshi Ghugra. Spaghetti is called Kachi Lambi Sev, or long dry sev. Risotto is Paschimi Khichdi, or Western Khichdi. Brownies are Gadya Dhokla, or sweet dhoklas. And pancakes, Malu Theplu, or bland thepla. When my mother ate her first proper pizza at a London pizzeria, she said it tasted like toasted uttapam. She also tended to call our refrigerator Thandu Kabat, or cold cupboard. There's a curiosity called Jasubenno pizza, Jasuben's pizza, which is exceptionally popular in Ahmedabad and which would horrify any Neapolitan purist. Jasuben had moved to Ahmedabad in 1976 from Pune after marriage. She baked the pizza pie as if it were a bhakri, which is a hard Gujarati-style unleavened bread made of coarse wheat, tougher than rotli. The secret sauce in Jasuben's pizza was a gravy. Ripened tomatoes, finely cut onions, garlic, Maggie's hot and sweet tomato sauce, black pepper, garam masala, oil, sugar and salt to taste. With more finely cut onion, capsicum and tomatoes added on top, along with grated homegrown Amul cheese, it became a pizza, if that's what you wanted to call it. With its crunchy biscuit-like crust, Jasuben's pizza scrupulously avoided ingredients you might find in a vegetarian pizza elsewhere in the world, such as mushrooms, olives, or jalapeno. Capsicum was a rude intrusion, and sugar infused everything, an affliction for which some blame Rajasthani cooks. Urvish Kothari, editor of a literary magazine in Ahmedabad, once told me, "We make things so sweet now that the only difference between dal and dudh pak is temperature. Most dals are made of lentil or pulses. Dudh pak is a sweet dessert made of rice, cardamom, almonds with slow-boiled milk, to which once it is thickened, sugar is added." Jasuben's pizza became a phenomenal success. By 2018, there were 6 outlets in Ahmedabad selling 20,000 pies a day at 70 rupees each. Jasuben did not stay long in Ahmedabad. She returned to Pune, leaving the business in the capable hands of her colleague Andarben and her husband Joravar Singh Rajput. Andarben was credited with designing a tall oven that could accommodate even more pizza pies stacked high.
There is an example of why we make money, because we look at a pizza and we look at capsicums and let's marry them together and sell them. And we feed hungry people and make money. So a lot of your book is about Gandhi and a lot of your book is about Modi, and both are Gujaratis. There is a statistic that you cite about communal violence, rioting in India. Even before the Godhra pogrom of 2002, between 1950 and 1995, Gujarat had 117 deaths per million due to communal violence, religious rioting, higher than any other state in India. Bihar, which people always think is a cauldron of communal violence, had only 78 deaths per million. Maharashtra, also another place that I've written a whole book about rioting in Maharashtra, came in third at 45. So Gujarat is arguably the most violent state in the country. And it's where Gandhi came from, it's where the incredibly non-violent Jain religion comes from. Why are we so violent?
So that's a fascinating question. I wish I had a glib answer to that, but I'll tell a story. I was a student in the US till 1986, did my master's. Then I went back to India for a few years. Then I was in other parts of the world, and now I'm here. But in 1986, Veer Sanghvi, who is also a Gujarati and an editor of a magazine called Imprint, asked me, he said, "Find out why are there riots in Gujarat all the time. Spend a month in Gujarat." So I went and wrote a long piece called A Gujarat Diary, and I went to almost the 18 districts, so I went to almost everywhere in that month. Towards the end, I went to Gandhinagar, the capital, and met Madhav Singh Solanki, who was the chief minister, who had just resigned because he had 2 terms, and this was the second term. He had won a fantastic majority, 149 out of 180 seats, which the record was bettered by BJP only the last time. Otherwise, it was an all-time record in Gujarat. And he had lost power, and he was at home, and his home was like this, full of books. I mean, he was a very well-read man. And so I said that, we are the land of Gandhi. Why are we so violent? And he said something that stayed with me, and I've used it in the book as well. He said, "Apne to hamesha khub hissa karta, apne shant karwa mate Gandhiji ni zarur padi. We were always incredibly violent. To calm us down, we needed a Gandhi." And if you look at the history of communal violence, it goes back at least to the late 19th century. The first riot takes place in Surat. Then it increases in the 1920s, again in Surat and Godhra. Morarji Desai, who later became the Prime Minister, was the district collector at that time and was reprimanded. He was part of the Imperial Civil Service, the Indian Civil Service now, and then it became IAS. But he was reprimanded for his failure to stop violence. And then he joins Congress party fully and becomes an activist. Then in the years leading up to the partition, there was a little bit of violence. But then 1969, the year of Gandhi's centenary, incredibly brutal violence took place, which was the worst communal carnage in India till 2002. So you have 1969, then in 83, 84, 85, it was periodic, and I was a journalist in Bombay in those days till 83, and I've covered some of those periods of absolutely brutal. And it's not just caste versus caste, but faith versus faith, but even men against women and petty violence for no reason. You know, somebody is not invited to a wedding, so he comes with an axe and cuts off the head of the person for not inviting him. That kind of brutality was visible there. And then, of course, you have 2002, which pales everything else into. I mean, everything else pales into insignificance compared to that. But official count 900 to 1,000 people dead. Unofficial, it's India, give or take. It's probably 2.5 times as much.
All right. But what's your best guess as to the origin of why Gujarat is so much more violent than other states? Other states have religious issues. They have, the British certainly didn't help with divide and rule. But in your book,
it is a very interesting question because unlike Punjab and Bengal, Gujarat didn't suffer violence during partition.
Right.
And it has a huge border with Pakistan, but it's the desert.
Yeah.
So, you don't really have the scope of, I mean, yes, there was a little bit of action in 1965, but very, very little compared to elsewhere. The only thing one can say is the continuous, I wouldn't use the word propaganda, but continuous infusion in the Gujarati mind of the notion of what great a place it was before the Muslims came. Right. And for that, credit or blame, whatever you want to give it, goes to Kanhaiya Munshi, the writer. Because he wrote these 3 novels, Patani Prabhuta, Gujaratno Nath, and Rajadhiraj, and then Jai Somnath. These are, and now they're all translated in English by Rita and Abhijit Kothari, by Penguin in India. I don't think they're available abroad, but I mean, if you're in India and are curious about exciting, engrossing Gujarati literature about history with inverted commas around it, it's worth it, because it's written in a very beautiful way. I mean, as an impressionable child, you would like it a lot. I mean, I read it as a schoolboy, and I really liked what I read at that time. But essentially, it created the image of 11th, 12th, and 13th century Gujarat, before the first Muslim sultan started coming, the period of the Chalukyas and Solankis, Siddharaj Jai Singh being the king, as the golden age, and as if nothing has improved it since then. So, sometimes you hear, and that Munshi also comes up with the word asmita, which means identity, sense of self in the positive sense, and pride and arrogance in the negative sense. And you get to see that in action, and you get to see that in the writing that has come. So that has shaped the thinking of many people, that we were great until the Muslims came, then the Shivaji's army came and ransacked Surat, then the British came, and so we had this 1,000 years of humiliation. And now, as I noticed when I was writing this, people told me about, when they said that, 2002, what happened was bad, but they needed to be taught a lesson. They needed to be straightened out, is what I kept hearing it again and again from surgeons and accountants and stockbrokers and all kinds of people. I mean, you still see this in WhatsApp messages these days, that, but after 2002, we have straightened them up. And it's always them, us and them.
So I follow you on Twitter, and I see all your, many admirers directing these barbs at you. Salil is, and he takes them on. He's really
sometimes
positive messages. And what's the reception been for your book here in India?
So I think there have been about 15 or 16 reviews. There's been one negative review, but the others are positive. But the negative review was about 20 paragraphs and there were 10 mistakes in the review. And this 900-page book has only probably 8 or 10 mistakes. So, you know. But anyway, but the point being that I mean, he put me in Brown University and not Dartmouth College. This is just elementary mistakes like that were made by whoever reviewed the book. But otherwise, it's been very, very warm and positive. I think partly the reason is that people expected the book to be highly critical of Gujaratis because my view of Indian politics and the people in charge of it at the moment. So they thought it will be an unrelentingly gloomy view of. But I love the language, I love the food, I love the culture, I love the people, I love the literature. I write in it, and a huge number of poets I admire, and you know, yes, Gujaratis are prosperous and so on, but Bhairavi Desai in New York runs a taxi drivers union here. Ela Bhatt and what she did with Seva for self-employed women in India. We all know that Nelson Mandela spent, 28 years in jail. With him was Ahmad Kathrada, who was Gujarati for all those 28 years. And Mac Maharaj was half Gujarati. So we have fought for apartheid. If you look at Zambian history, Kenneth Kaunda's constitution was written by a Gujarati lawyer. And Jayaben Desai in London created the first non-white trade union of women who took on a photo development company. So there are lots of very positive stories of fighting for the underdog and fighting for someone who's deprived and so on. And that all goes back to Gandhi. I met Laila Nazar Ali. I only spoke to her on the phone. She has worked with the UN in Afghanistan and Iraq and, you know, working with children and protecting their lives. And I said, what made you do it? She said, Gandhi. So, I mean, for some reason, she's never grown. I mean, she's British born and all that. But this is the way she reacts to it. That old man still somehow has a hold. And I think that's India's blessing, I suppose.
Yeah. We'll take some questions, but before we do, I love the way your book ends with a love story. And so, could you read out that last section?
I'll read parts of that, yes. Just to give a background, they're one of the 2 or 3 people I've changed names of in the book because the man is Muslim, the woman Hindu, they did get married, and they're very private people. So they were very open with me, and I know their story inside out, but it's a classic story about not escaping and fleeing to get married, but deciding to get married and taking time to convince both the families to accept it. And what happens in this case is that the Muslim gentleman is from a very prosperous and prominent family, and the Hindu woman has a job. I mean, I won't say more because Ahmedabad is a small town and people find out these stories. And anyway, they waited. And in the end, I've called them Samir and Seema because both names could be either Hindu or Muslim. And I thought that was a nice way of addressing that. And they waited patiently and managed to, and they gave me hope that it's possible to have a nicer, better future. So, it's about 3 pages of story, but I'll skip through certain part here. When Seema came to the family home, her mother-in-law gave her the keys to all the cupboards and showed her where all the jewelry was kept and said she should wear anything she wanted anytime. She was family now. I was accepted with such warmth, she said. She always asked me if I was happy and told me I could, of course, visit my mother whenever I wanted. I was worried. I thought she kept saying that because she did not like me and wanted me to be sent back. No, Samir said, laughing. She was giving you a choice, he said, when we were out for lunch one day. After they were married, the first question almost everyone asked Seema was if she had converted to Islam. She learned to steer conversation away from unpleasant topics such as the pogrom. ये विषय न कहीं लखाए, न छपाए, न बुलाए, न मंचाए, न चर्चा कराए, न उठे सवाल, बस शांति. On that topic, you could not write nothing, print nothing, read nothing, discuss nothing, raise no questions. Just silence, she said. People willingly spoke of the Kutch earthquake of 2001, even the terrorist attacks in Mumbai in 2008. But if you said anything about 2002, things became quiet. Now, more than a decade has passed. Some of my younger colleagues and cousins don't believe it had even happened. Riots? Here? They asked me. Seema said. Samir agreed. If there's a problem, you should discuss it. But what if there is only silence? People have stopped making any effort to know one another. There were minor debates at home too. Seema now lives in a large home with a common courtyard with individual flats for various members of Sameer's family. When she wanted to paint a rangoli, which is a floral pattern that you draw with color on the floor, there was discomfort considering the emotions of others in the society. Her mother-in-law told her, "You are ours now." "Yes," Seema said, "but I am the same that I was." The mother-in-law said, "No, you are not accepting us. You are not doing the namaz with us." But Seema said, "I'm not quite religious-minded. I don't do Hindu puja either." Seema said her sister thought Sameer was too good to be true and came to their wedding wearing jeans. Her family had resisted their marriage for a long time, but now her mother visits her at Sameer's family home. In fact, she has set a set of clothes at her daughter's home in case she decides to stay overnight. My father recites mantras. My father-in-law says the ayat. One has Rudraksh beads, one has prayer beads, one reads Gita, other reads Quran. In the evening, one lights a lamp, the other lights incense. We eat the same food, khichdi, okra, ivy gourd and potatoes, curry. How is anyone special? Are we not all the same? Seema asked me. When she mentioned to her mother that they cooked vegetables at Sameer's home, she asked Seema, "Do they eat vegetables?" "But what else would they eat? They are Gujarati," Seema replied. And then my mother said, "Please forgive me, I wasted so many years of your life when you could have been happier by resisting this marriage." Seema told me, her eyes welled up. So did mine when I heard the story. My only wish that I could use their real names, but they deserve their privacy. Gujaratis don't need to know who they are. They need to learn from them how to live with one another. I consciously say they and not we for the first time in this book. What has become of Gujarat is not my idea of Gujarat. But then remember, I'd warned you, I'm an insider looking out, but also an outsider looking in.
We have time for some questions. If anyone in the audience would like, just raise your hand. I realize the book's just come out, and it's hard to get the book here, but really it's a book that richly deserves to be published here. So, Raj.
So I'm curious. My voice is pretty loud as it is.
No, I think it's also being
recorded. No
so
worries.
yeah.
I was say usually everyone complains I speak too loud. So, Salil, one of the things I love about one of the questions Suketu was asking about is the history of how Gujaratis are viewed. Now, myself, I'm a hardcore Gujarati. I've traveled and lived in Godhra, Anand, Baroda. But one of the things that I've realized and what I love how you capture is that there is an incredible history going back thousands of years in terms of arts and literature in Gujarat. A lot of it flowing from religion and faith and Hinduism, kirtans, bhajans, and so on and so forth. Poetry and writing out of the Baroda School of Arts. You had Satyajit Ray. I mean, many authors had come to Gujarat to study. Do you dig into any of the history as to that dichotomy between us being such, quote unquote, great business people, but also this history and where it comes from? Because that has always fascinated me and always surprised me when I go back and I look at the literature and the poetry and the deep history and art, for example, that has come through Baroda as an example.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of the Baroda school, Suresh Joshi and all the great painters over there, Bhupen Khakkar and Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh, who's a poet and a painter, and there's a huge chunk about that. So when you read that, I think you'll like that part, I imagine, yeah. Because I really think that what Baroda did between 60s and 80s in terms of renaissance of the meeting of artists, writers, sculptors, painters, photographers at MS University is not remarkably different from what happened in Paris in the 20s when Gertrude Stein was holding forth and Hemingway and Fitzgerald and William Carlos Williams and all of them were there. So there is a beehive of activity that was going on in Baroda, and it was amazing, absolutely.
Someone here?
So by the way, when I opened your book first time, I randomly ended up at a page where, I don't remember the exact text, but where a teacher is asking the kid about who is the greatest God.
The joke, yes.
Yes, and he replies that business is business. I couldn't stop myself laughing. That was a fantastic one.
Thank you.
Question I have is...
I will tell the joke later. It's quite funny. So, but let's have the question. Yeah.
So you gave some fantastic examples of inspirations or carrying over the values from Gandhi. I also see a trend which is in these days in India with anti-Gandhi, anti-Nehru, and that doesn't look like more of a critical examination of any work. It more just looks like, I don't know how to even phrase it. Do you have you explored while writing a book what's going on there? Are we,
So that's a very serious question. So let's tackle that first. I think what's happening is that Gandhi died almost 77 years ago, something like that. He's fading from memory. And he has been turned into, from being a moral force who was politically far ahead of his times. And you know what Einstein said, generations to come will scarce believe that one such as this ever walked on the face of earth. Those were Einstein's words. From that, he has basically become, to put it bluntly, the nation's janitor, Swachhata Andolan, that he's known only for his desire to have cleanliness, his vegetarianism, and his religious devotion. And that's the transformation, that's the image that is being portrayed. There's also denigration and him getting the blame for the partition. Now, Gandhi had no political power. And in 1942, he was arrested. Until 45, he was in jail. And in 48, he dies. At 47, most Indian historians who have looked at that period will say that after 44, 45, he mattered less and less politically. He was important as a moral force to go to Noakhali and stop violence, to go to Calcutta and make sure that people don't kill each other. But as a person who could influence and shape, he mattered less and less because the Congress leaders at that time, both Nehru and Patel and Jinnah on the other side, wanted to do what they wanted to do. So politically, his significance elsewhere remains. Now, there are 2 or 3 types of critics, right? There are people who are critical of him for his treatment of women. There are people who are critical of how he viewed blacks. And there are people who are critical about how he dealt with Jews. I mean, in terms of, he famously said that when Hitler sent them to gas chamber, they should shame him by going with, happily going into the gas chamber because it would shame Hitler and stop him. Now, that shows a certain amount of idealism and naivete, incredible naivete about Nazism. And he even wrote a letter to Hitler to stop doing what he was doing, and so on. So he had idiosyncrasies, he had strange ideas, but the mood in India is extremely bracing for, to show the aggression that, we were a strong nation and we were prevented from being that by this elderly man who was non-violent. If only we had Subhash Chandra Bose or Shivaji or Bhagat Singh. They don't realize that Subhash Chandra Bose and Bhagat Singh was a communist and Subhash Chandra Bose was extremely left-leaning. They would have never, broken bread with the RSS today. But yet they have been appropriated because they are the violent counters to Gandhi. So there is that which is happening. And you have in certain states like BJP ruled states like Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh and so on, you have had 20 and 25 years of BJP rule, which controls education and for the textbooks. There was one Gujarati textbook which I've written about in a privately run school, where actually the question for the children in the history exam was, why did Gandhi commit suicide? The whole history is being rewritten that he was not that he was murdered by a Hindu nationalist, but that he had somehow ended his life. And of course, then it became a huge uproar and the textbook was withdrawn and the principal had to leave and so on. But the subtle manipulation of history has been going on for a very long time. Now to something lighter and that joke that you mentioned. So this is a school in Alabama. I mean, it's a fictitious story, of course, where the teacher says, who is the greatest American? And there's a new Indian kid called Jignesh who's sitting at the back. And one person gets up and says, I think the greatest American was George Washington. The greatest person ever was George Washington because he fought for our freedom. So the teacher said, that's a very good answer, but that's not what I'm looking for. Anybody else? Then another child says, Abraham Lincoln, because he abolished slavery. That's also a very good answer, and he was a very good man, but that's not what I'm looking for. Another child gets up and says, Martin Luther King, because he fought for civil rights. So, no, it's a very good answer, but not what I'm looking for. Then finally, Jignesh puts his hand up. What's your answer? He said, Jesus Christ. That's exactly what I was looking for. And this boy who has just come to America, who's not even a Christian, knows this answer. How did you know? So he sheepishly looks down. He said, come on, tell me what happened. How did you know that it was Jesus? That way I know that Krishna is the greatest, but you know, my dad said business is business.
Good story. Anyone else?
Pragmatism.
Sorry.
Do you touch upon
Yeah, Mike.
Just wait for Mike.
Do you touch upon the fact that if we go back to mythology, that Krishna moved to Dwarka and he was cursed by Gandhari, and all the violence that pursued post the death of Krishna, and the entire region was helpless in fighting that violence. And it was almost like a curse that lives on.
I haven't gone into the great detail of the story, but I do mention, because you find all these Bhatt-charans who go around and they talk about Krishna's story as though they have witnessed it. And they're like troubadours. They sing out these stories. So I've written about the troubadours, and that's where I have said that, yes, Dwarka and Krishna, and people think that. And there's a long section on Meera, because she was one of the leading poets of the time, yeah.
We're going to have time for one more question, and then we'll do the signing.
Hi, Salil. So maybe just piggybacking on the earlier question about Gandhi. I'm wondering
sorry?
about Gandhi. And probably there's a larger sort of question of us idolizing people, putting them on pedestal. Have you also discussed the Pune Pact and, you know, his sort of politics behind it? Because I see a bit of a contradiction there. You mentioned that he did not have political power, but then when he had an opportunity, when he was in those kinds of situations, there's criticism of Gandhi that he didn't really sort of side with people who did not have power. So I am wondering if...
Yeah, he was a very stubborn man. He was not perfect. And I mean, he obviously, he took decisions at particular moments in time, which in hindsight were wrong. But one important thing about him, you know, he called his autobiography My Experiments with Truth. He was constantly trying to learn. And one issue that I've looked at with some detail, because I've been to South Africa many times, and therefore I've looked at it in some detail, is his evolving views about blacks. Because yes, he does use a K word to describe them in the early years, but later he's incredibly generous, and he says that and in fact there's a famous thing, people say that he called black Africans noble savages. But if you read the whole quote, and this is the speech he gave at Cambridge or Oxford in the 1912 or 13, when he was back in England for a while. And he said that you call them noble savages. We have also started calling them noble savages. Noble they are, savages they are not. That last part is rarely spoken of, but you have to look at the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, which are 99 volumes, they're all online. So, I mean, I'm not making this up at all. But if there's evidence you want to look for, it is there. It doesn't make him perfect, but as George Orwell wrote, you know, in his famous essay about Gandhi when he was killed, the last line is that, you know, saints should always be deemed guilty until, you know, they prove otherwise. But his last line is very well, and I'm paraphrasing, so I'm not accurately quoting it. He said that there were many things to dislike about him, but he's gone now, but what a wonderful smell he has left behind. And I think that's what we need to look at.
Absolutely. Right. Salil there's copies of Salil's book outside. And if you're a true Gujarati, you will get it signed by Salil and then resell the book at a markup, because it's impossible to get these books in the United States. Right? It doesn't have a publisher yet. If you were a real Gujarati, you would ask for a discount. So, buy this book.
And I'll happily write it in Gujarati if anyone wants.
Yeah.
All right, thank you both so much. Let's give them a hand.